This is my underpainting, and you can see how I slowly developed the basic composition, changing things here and there, adding contrast and value and temperature. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about composition. And I've been working on this painting here, and this is a scene from Arches, and I got into it and it seemed like a good idea at the time. I had good reference, I had a good sketch, yet when I painted my underpainting I didn't quite like the composition. It wasn't quite as sharp as I thought it would be. A lot of people think that composition is a matter of putting something in your focal point and having lines lead to that point. And there's some truth to that, but I like to think of composition as being the manipulation of the eye through a two-dimensional space, your canvas. In the art of composition, I like to think of the canvas as a group of areas of attraction. Now, one of the areas of attraction is the center. Now, if there's an object placed in the center, your eye is going to go directly to it. And really it has no option to do anything else. And it may flip back and forth between the edge and the center, but it'll be very erratic and very static. The other area of influence is the edge of the painting, which I've indicated here with a red line. Now, if you place anything on the edge of your painting, it's going to create the same kind of an eye trap that the center created. Your eye will go there and it will stay there. There won't be any way to nudge the eye movement away from the edge. One metaphor that's very useful for me is to think of these areas as having their own gravitational field, you might say. And when the eye gets close to them, they sort of snap over to the edge or to the center. And so it has to be treated with a bit of delicacy. This is probably also why the law of thirds evolved, because there's sort of an area, which I've indicated here with gray, where the field of the areas is less. The eye can travel freely around this area if you have an object in that area without it stalling the eye or stopping the eye, as it would if the object were on the center or on the edges. So while the rule of thirds is an interesting rule and can be useful for the beginner, I don't think it has enough description of the forces that motivate the eye through a two-dimensional space. Now, there are other elements. Some people think of composition as good balance, and that certainly is a component. But balance in and of itself doesn't really have much to do with how the eye circulates through that motif, through that scene. One way to lead the eye through the space is through line. And line is not only just a stroke, like, for example, the way Van Gogh used to outline some of his shapes. I like to think of line as two different values that are adjacent, and that will create a line. You can manipulate how the eye travels along that line by varying that contrast between the two shapes. For example, a line that's gray on one side, let's say it's your sky, it's a very middle value, and a mountain is, let's say it's a sort of a middle value gray as well. That line is going to be very indistinct. Now let's say that as it travels to one side of the landscape, that the mountains get lighter and the sky gets darker. Well, that line will become more pronounced. Now when a line becomes more pronounced, the eye will travel faster along that point. As you lead the eye through a painting, you want to speed the eye up in places, you want to slow it down in places. Another way to slow the eye down is to blur that edge. If an edge is blurry, the eye just naturally slows as it moves along that edge, that contour. If the edge is very sharp, as you see here in the middle of the horizon line, the eye will move very, very quickly. One solution I can see in this painting right now is to soften the edge along the contour of the rocks. That will merge the value between the sky and the rock up in the upper right hand corner, and it'll slow the eye down and keep the eye from going off the edge up there in the upper right. This exercise has helped me come up with a few alternatives, but I think I'm going to set this canvas aside for a while and think about the solutions I want to implement. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. Until next time, thanks.